The mic rattled across the oak desk, feedback shrieking like a siren let loose in a tomb. Even the judge froze, gavel suspended mid-air, her knuckles white against the handle. My grandson stood there, chest heaving, the weight of his outburst still echoing against the courtroom walls. "He's not my family." The words hit harder than the slam. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Raymond. I'm 71 years old, and this is what really happened. Back in Knoxville, Tennessee, people still shake hands at the gas station. The kind of firm shake that means, "I see you. You're still part of this town." Kids say sir and ma'am without needing to be nudged. Grocery clerks ask about your mother before they scan the milk. And family business? Well, you keep it in the family. At least that's what I believed, until the floor gave out from under me. The courthouse smelled of pine floor cleaner, cut with the sour tang of sweat. Those fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like they had been fighting to stay alive for 20 years. The walls were dressed in brown paneling, not wood, not really, just that laminate veneer pretending. Flags hung limp, plastic folds too stiff to flutter. I'd sat in that very courtroom once before, back in '89. Traffic violation, rolling stop sign, 5 in the morning. Paid a fine, went home. Back then it felt like a harmless inconvenience, a thing you laughed about later. Today wasn't that. Today wasn't a ticket. Today was a summons. Civil court. Estate hearing. My own blood had dragged me here. Eliza sat 2 rows behind the plaintiff's desk, posture straight as rebar, like she'd rehearsed for this. My daughter, she wouldn't meet my eyes. Her boy, Declan, stood front and center. 26. Hair slicked back so smooth it shone under those miserable lights. Blue suit, the kind you rent for your first real job interview. But on him it looked permanent, like he wanted to convince the world he belonged in a boardroom. He looked like he was born with a LinkedIn profile, and here he was, testifying against me. They claimed I'd been unsound of mind when I amended my will, that someone had coerced me into leaving them out. Coerced. I lived alone in a 1-story house on the edge of town. Screened porch, too many ashtrays, a freezer full of venison from a buddy who hunted. Nobody came by. Nobody leaned on me. Who could have coerced me? The neighbor's cat? Declan leaned into the mic, adjusting his tie with that quick, nervous jerk he thought looked confident. He cleared his throat. Practiced. Like he was about to deliver Shakespeare at a high school theater. The attorney, his not mine, guided him like a puppeteer. Plaintiff attorney, can you repeat your relationship to the defendant? Declan, Raymond Cole is biologically my grandfather. That hesitation hung in the air like a bead of sweat sliding down a temple. Then he straightened, jaw clenched. Declan, but he is not my family. There it was. The knife. He slapped the mic with the flat of his hand. The metal groaned, feedback screeching high-pitched enough to rattle my dentures. Papers lifted, fluttered down like spooked pigeons. A woman in the gallery gasped, sharp intake like she'd seen a car swerve. The judge's eyes narrowed. She hadn't moved, not yet. Gavel still hovering in midair like a frozen question mark. Eliza didn't flinch, didn't blink. She just stared at the floor, lips pinched so tight they'd gone white. Both hands strangled her purse strap, like she was driving a car already off the cliff, and that strip of leather was the only thing keeping her from screaming. I didn't say a word, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. Because here's the thing, if I had made that noise in a courtroom, the bailiff would have had me face down on the carpet before the echo died. But Declan, clean cut, polished, tailored suit, he got grace. His outburst wasn't violence, it was emotion. Judge, Mr. Cole, you will compose yourself. Declan, I am composed, Your Honor, but I refuse to let this man, this stranger, repaint our family history. Stranger, the word struck harder than the feedback, harder than the slam. From the corner of my eye, I saw a reporter shift her recorder closer. Knoxville Ledger, Headlines by sundown. Old man disowned by grandson in fiery courtroom drama. Declan's lawyer, Warren Ellison, slick as motor oil, hair that never moved, stepped in. Calm, rehearsed, like a man stepping over puddles he'd already mapped out. Warren, Your Honor, my client is understandably upset. But we stand by the petition. There is significant concern that the recent amendments to Mr. Cole's estate plan were made under duress, without legal clarity, and in contradiction to prior intentions. Beside me, my attorney leaned close. Kim Baldwin, local, sharp as barbed wire, twisted around a fence post. Kim, whispering, You want me to object? Me, No. Kim, You sure? Me, Let him dig. Let the boy dig. I turned and really looked at him. Declan. My blood, his father's jawline, my late wife's pale blue eyes. But the softness, gone, replaced with something cold, something calculated. He'd never built a fence post with his own hands. Never changed a tire on a sweltering shoulder with semis rattling your bones. Never sat on the porch beside me, thermos between us, while cicadas screeched a love song to the heat. He'd grown up in Nashville, private schools, glass buildings, air conditioning on full blast. His mother took the settlement money and built him stairs to climb, steps so polished he never looked down. I mailed birthday cards, every year, sometimes a thanks, sometimes silence. He didn't even know my middle name, but I knew his secrets. Declan. He didn't even attend my college graduation. He didn't visit when my mother was sick. And now he wants to rewrite everything from the grave before he's even in it. A chuckle rippled through the gallery, nervous, thin, people trying to hide their teeth. I could see the cracks already. Declan was burning too hot, too early. Rule 1 in court, never peek before lunch. Judge. Mr. Cole, do you wish to respond to the plaintiff's statements at this time? I stood, slow, deliberate. My chair creaked like an old barn door. My knees ached, spine stiff, but my voice came out steady. Me. No, ma'am. I'll wait. That silence stretched, long enough to make people shift in their seats, long enough to let the tension swell. A cough echoed from the back, one of those phlegmy, uninvited sounds that somehow made the air feel thicker. The overhead lights flickered, tired bees buzzing louder. The judge raised one eyebrow, curious, testing me. I sat again, hands folded, eyes steady. Let him scream. Let him burn the oxygen. Because the colder the revenge, the deeper it cuts. When my wife, Carol, passed, 5 years ago last month, I rewrote the will. Quiet, methodical. Took a drive down to Sevier County, county clerk's office. Kim helped me draft it. Every page clean. Every stamp proper. Notarized, sealed tight. The original will? That one left everything to Eliza and Declan. Back before I knew about the accounts. Before I found the withdrawals. Before the doctor got fired. But that wasn't the story being told today. Not yet. Because in that courtroom, nobody knew. Not about the trust account she tried to close. Not about the voicemail I'd kept saved, tucked away like a loaded pistol. Not about the visitor log from the assisted living center, the one that spelled out, in ugly black ink, how Carol had died 2 months too early, because someone forgot her medication refill. Declan wanted a performance. He wanted noise. So I gave him the stage. Beside me, Kim cracked open her folder just an inch, just enough for me to see the envelope. Clerk's seal in black ink, gold foil sticker catching the light. Proof, waiting. Let him burn. Declan. We have documentation proving a sudden shift in the will occurred under questionable conditions. No consultation with family. No medical assessments of his mental state. Nothing but a handwritten letter and a witness signature from someone who's conveniently unavailable. Warren, Your Honor, we request that the court issue a hold on the execution of Mr. Cole's estate transition until a full psychological assessment can be completed, and the original will re-evaluated under Tennessee Probate Code. Section. Judge, cutting in, "Thank you, Mr. Ellison. We'll review that motion shortly." Her eyes found mine again, pinning me like a butterfly on a corkboard. Judge, "Mr. Cole, are you aware of these allegations?" Me, "I am." Judge, "And you contest them?" Me, "Every word." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Because when the gavel finally fell, not today maybe, but soon, it wouldn't be because I shouted louder. It'd be because I'd waited. Because patience outlasts fire. Some truths don't need to be screamed. They just need to be opened. Like an envelope. The lights above us flickered again, faint, stuttering like a dying heartbeat in the ceiling. One bulb buzzed, a long electric whine as if it might surrender altogether. Strange, isn't it? A place where lives get split in two with the swing of a gavel, where families fracture with nothing more than ink on paper, and they can't even keep the bulbs steady. The court clerk lifted her head, eyes narrowing against the harsh glow. She didn't say anything. None of them did. That silence was taut, stretched so thin it hummed. Everyone seemed to understand, at the same instant, that this wasn't the smooth procedural inheritance hearing they'd shuffled in expecting. This was going to bleed. A cough broke the air. Short, nervous, a single cough that sounded too loud against the hush, and not a single eye turned away from me, even Declan, especially Declan. His mouth, so quick a moment ago, had gone quiet. He'd thought I would erupt. He wanted me to. Wanted me to rise out of my chair and spit fire, prove his point for him, show the room I was the angry old fool he painted. But all I gave him was stillness. The hum of the ceiling vent pressed down like a whisper. The slow, relentless tick of the courtroom clock marked each second as if chiseling it in stone. Even the bailiff, who had been tapping his pen against the edge of his clipboard like a drummer keeping tempo, froze mid-beat. I sat there, back straight, hands folded on the table as if carved from wood. I didn't glance at the folder, didn't let my fingers twitch toward the envelope Kim had tucked safely inside. Not yet. Instead, I let the silence deepen, let it choke the oxygen from the room. And in that stillness, a memory rose, my father's voice, gravel thick and sharp as a whip. "You don't fish a snake out of a pond with a stick," he used to tell me. "You let it drown itself first." And right then, sitting in that stale-smelling room with buzzing lights and sweating walls, I understood. Declan was already splashing in the water. "Warren, Your Honor, if I may, our petition includes statements from 2 family members who claim Mr. Cole has shown erratic behavior over the last year. Forgetfulness, mood swings, refusals to answer calls. These are red flags in elder law." His voice was smooth, the tone of a man who wanted to sound like the voice of reason. But I heard the edges. I heard the way he leaned on the words erratic and forgetfulness, laying the foundation brick by brick. "Judge, you're referring to the affidavits from Ms. Eliza Cole and Mr. Declan Cole?" Warren, correct. The judge gave a slow nod. Her fingers hovered above the laptop keys, poised to record, but she didn't type. Not yet. She wanted to see what came next. "Judge, and Mr. Cole has legal representation present. Miss Baldwin?" Kim rose, quiet as a blade leaving its sheath. Her linen suit rustled, but her face was stone, her voice measured steel. "Kim, we'll be addressing every claim, Your Honor. We're not disputing Declan's feelings. We're disputing his facts." The judge arched a brow. "Proceed." Kim held her ground. "But not today." The gallery stirred like cattle catching a scent. A low murmur rippled through the wooden benches. Even Warren's polished mask faltered, his head tilting with the faintest quizzical twitch. "Kim, we'd like to call for a continuance. 5 business days. In that time, we will file a sealed supplement with notarized supporting evidence, plus a witness statement we've been waiting on due to interstate scheduling issues." The word sealed supplement rolled across the courtroom like a storm cloud. Warren, "Objection, Your Honor." This is a stall tactic. Kim, if you're worried about time, maybe your client shouldn't have spent the last 15 minutes giving an audition for Judge Judy. A ripple of chuckles cracked the tension. The bailiff's pen resumed its soft, rhythmic tapping. An unintentional applause. The judge's gavel came down once, a sharp wooden heartbeat. Both sides. Enough, Miss Baldwin. Granted. You'll have your 5 days. Kim, thank you, Your Honor. And she sat, smooth and calm, as if she'd just ordered iced tea at Sunday supper. Declan's jaw flexed, the muscle jumping under his skin like it wanted out. He bit the inside of his cheek. I knew that look. I'd seen it when he was a boy, cornered in a lie, lips pressed shut to dam the flood. Declan, so you're just going to sit there and let this lie stand? He wasn't looking at the judge anymore, not at Warren. His eyes locked on mine. Declan, you left my mom in the hospital without saying goodbye. You changed the will behind our backs. You didn't even show up to the family reunion, and now you're acting like some mafia boss, waiting for the perfect dramatic moment. I let the silence hold. Then I said, flat as a nailhead, me, you always did like the sound of your own voice, Declan. The lights overhead stuttered again, washing the courtroom in a sickly pulse. Somewhere in the back, another cough, harsher this time, cutting the air like a saw through bone. I leaned in, voice low enough to steady the walls. Me, but that voice of yours, it cracks when you lie. Declan's nostrils flared, his shoulders bunched. Declan, you don't deserve that house, that land, that money. You wasted your life sitting on a porch drinking beer and growing tomatoes no one asked for. That one landed like a slap across the gallery. Heads turned, not toward me, toward Eliza. But she didn't lift her eyes. Her hands stayed knotted around that purse strap, like she was choking it into silence. Declan's voice climbed, brittle now. Declan, you think because you served in the army and buried a wife that you get to play king of the family? We built lives. We went to college. We worked real jobs. You don't get to rewrite what you were to us. You were absent. And there it was, the crack, the turn, the moment when passion stopped sounding righteous and started sounding desperate. The gallery wasn't nodding anymore. They weren't sympathizing. They were watching him unravel, watching rage twist into something smaller, weaker. The judge cleared her throat, her patience thinning. Judge, Mr. Cole, I'll remind you, this is a courtroom, not a confessional. Declan snapped his mouth shut, but barely. His breath still came sharp, angry through his nose. I leaned forward slower than the ticking clock. Me, you want to talk about absence, boy? Beside me, Kim whispered, tight and urgent. Kim, Raymond. I raised a hand steady. Me, I was there the day your mama signed her rights over to you. You were 5. She wanted to go to Atlanta. Said she'd come back for you when she got her life in order. Never did. You think I didn't see that? You think I didn't pay for it? You think a man forgets the look on a child's face when his mother walks away, leaves him with a bag of snacks and a plastic fire truck and a goodbye she never meant? The silence broke like glass shattering. No pen tapping now. No coughs. Not even a shuffle from the gallery. Declan's face went pale, his lips twitching as if the blood had drained out. Me. You were raised by Carol and me until you were 10. You called me Papa Ray. Then Eliza came back, waving a new marriage certificate and a college degree, and told you we weren't your real family anymore. Kim, softly, Raymond, that's enough. But the judge didn't stop me. Neither did Declan, because they both knew I wasn't yelling. I was remembering. Me. I didn't show up to your graduation because I wasn't invited. Your mother told me it was her day, not mine. I didn't see Carol's final days because I was locked out of the care account you emptied. Declan's mouth opened, then shut, soundless. Me. The medication refill? The one that went missing 2 weeks before Carol died? You told the nursing staff you were handling it. They logged the call. I have the voicemail. This time the gasps weren't polite. They were sharp, raw. A couple of people in the gallery even shifted back in their seats, like the air itself had turned dangerous. Even the reporter froze, pen hovering mid-scratch. The judge's voice was level, but the edge of curiosity had sharpened into something else. Judge, Mr. Cole, if you have evidence. Me, I do. I nodded at Kim. She opened the folder, careful, deliberate. The faint gleam of an envelope's gold seal peeked from the papers. But not yet. Not that piece. The time wasn't right. We were still waiting on the witness. But the thread had been tugged. The sweater was starting to unravel. The people in that room weren't asking whether I was telling the truth anymore. They were asking what else I had waiting. Declan's voice cracked for the first time, a note of panic slipping in. Declan, you recorded me? Me. Tennessee's a one-party consent state. Look it up. He staggered a step back, his heel catching the leg of a chair, nearly toppled, regained balance by a thread. And for one instant, just one, I saw it. Fear. Not the loud, thrashing kind. The quiet kind. The kind that arrives when you realize the walls are closing in and there's nowhere left to run. I didn't need to raise my voice, because sometimes the truth, whispered at the right time, drowns out every scream. The courtroom air had turned thick, not hot, just heavy, like every breath pulled in twice the weight it should. You know that feeling, when a storm rolls in and even the birds stop singing. That's what it felt like. Declan wasn't talking anymore. He stood stiff as a scarecrow, staring at the desk like it might sprout answers. The judge had gone still too, pen held above her notepad, waiting. Everyone was waiting. And that's when Kim reached for the envelope. Slow, no theatrics, just quiet certainty. Her fingers slid beneath the flap. The gold foil sticker cracked, crack, like a gunshot in a room full of secrets. The gallery stirred. A few leaned forward. Someone at the back whispered, "That's from the clerk's office." The whisper floated and clung, the way dust hangs in a single shaft of light. Kim placed the contents flat on the desk between us. 3 documents, court-certified, notarized, one with a county seal stamped so clean you could feel the ridges through the paper just by looking at them. The papers breathed a little when the air vents cycled on, the edges lifting and settling like the tide. Judge, Ms. Baldwin, Kim, Exhibit C, Your Honor. Amended will and trust, filed and sealed through Sevier County Probate Court, dated April 12th, 2 years ago, witnessed, notarized, and backed by a medical certification of mental clarity, filed on the same date. She slid the paper forward with the kind of precision that comes from knowing exactly when to cut the rope. Her nails didn't click, her voice didn't waver. She let the paper do the talking, and paper, when it's got stamps and signatures, speaks louder than a shout. Judge, reading. Medical certificate, Dr. Harris W. Levine, Knoxville Regional. Cognitive evaluation complete. No signs of impairment. She looked up, not at Kim, not at me, at Declan. Judge, your petition claims the defendant was mentally unfit at the time of filing. Warren, we were unaware of that document's existence. Kim, I'm sure you were. Warren, Your Honor, may we request time to review? Judge, you may. Kim, to the court. We also have power of attorney revocation paperwork filed weeks prior to the trust amendment. Mr. Declan Cole was removed from all financial and legal decision-making capacities concerning Mr. Raymond Cole, for cause. Judge, what cause? Me. Negligence and misuse of access. Gas again, this time sharper. I turned slowly, looked toward the gallery. Not at Eliza, she still hadn't met my eyes, but at the woman next to her. Mid-40s, shoulder-length black hair, gray blazer, nervous fingers picking at her sleeve like she was unraveling a sweater, one thread at a time. She met my gaze, nodded. That's when I knew the second shoe could drop. But for now, I focused on the papers. Ink, stamps, dates. The quiet armor a man wears when noise tries to bury him. Kim, we request the court recognize the validity of this amendment and suspend any further challenge unless new evidence of fraud or coercion arises. Judge, reading again, all proper filings appear to be here. Case number 22-0317C. She pressed the pages flat with 2 fingers, as if smoothing a bed before sleep. Warren, Your Honor, again I'd urge caution. The sudden shift in beneficiaries raises. Judge, interrupting, Mr. Ellison, if you present one more point without evidence, I will hold you in contempt. Silence. Dead, legal silence. Even the lights seemed to settle, the buzz dipping from a hiss to a low electric purr. Then the judge spoke again, slower this time, choosing each word like it might ricochet. Judge, Mr. Cole, Raymond, do you wish to submit a statement for the record? I stood. Me. Yes, ma'am. My knees popped as I rose. The courtroom wood groaned beneath my shoes. Somewhere a hinge squealed. Old buildings protest change. They know what happens when people start rearranging the future. Me. For the last 2 years, I've watched my daughter and grandson try to carve my name out of their history. They stopped visiting. They cut off contact. I kept records. Not out of pettiness, but because I've lived long enough to know that people change when money's involved. I paused. Let the words lay down, flat and plain without varnish. I looked down at the stamped trust amendment. April 12th, 2 years and a lifetime ago. Carol's handwriting still lived in a sticky note, tucked between my wallet and a photo of her at Cade's Cove. Pick up coffee filters, her last reminder to me, like life was going to keep needling me about small things while the big things crumbled. Me. My wife, Carol, didn't die suddenly. She died slowly, and they stopped checking in. The day she fell, I was the only one there, and when I asked for help afterward, simple things like rides to the pharmacy or covering a shift with the home nurse, I was told I was difficult and stuck in the past. I could feel the room recalibrate, the way people do when the story they thought they knew grows bones and stands up. Now I looked at Eliza. She still wouldn't look at me. I waited. 3 breaths, long enough for the clock to tick loud again, long enough for the reporter's pen to scratch, scratch, scratch. Me. So I wrote a new will. I filed it clean. I made it legal. Because if you don't put your truth in writing, someone else will rewrite it for you. I sat down, and I swear you could hear a pin drop, not a cough, not a shoe scuff. Even the bailiff's throat refused to clear. The judge folded her hands. The bench made a soft complaint as she leaned forward, like it too needed to get this right. Judge, this changes the nature of the petition. We'll take a recess. Court resumes in 1 hour for witness testimony. Gavel drop. The sound hit like thunder. It rolled through the benches, crawled under the doors, and rattled the vending machine in the hall. People stood too fast, then remembered themselves and slowed, like the air had turned to honey. The gallery erupted into murmurs, low conversations, paper shuffling, the private language of people who had just realized they might be on the wrong side of a story. I leaned back, breathed deep. The pine cleaner had faded. Now the room smelled like warm dust and old carpet and the coppery tang of nerves. My heart drummed, not hard, just steady, like a boot heel on a porch plank. Then I turned to Kim. Me. She's here, right? Kim. She is. Me. Good. Because one more truth was coming. One voice they'd forgotten. One name Declan had buried, thinking it would never rise again. But names have a way of surviving, especially when they're signed beside yours on a hospital log. The hour broke apart into small pieces, the way hours do when you don't want to think. The bailiff announced recess again, as if repetition would convince the building. People filed out. Shoes scraped. Doors sighed. The lights kept their tired glow, but the room felt bigger with bodies gone. Kim packed the exhibits with the care of a nurse dressing a wound. Eat, she said, passing me a wrapped granola bar from that bottomless briefcase of hers. I stared at the wrapper. Peanut butter. Carol would have traded me for it. She always said I was stingy with the good snacks, then left the last bite for me anyway. I put the bar in my shirt pocket, close to the heart, close to the memory. You all right? Kim asked. I'm holding, I said. She studied my face like a mechanic listening to an engine. Don't burn it all in the first mile, she said. We still have a hill to climb. I nodded, looked toward the door where the woman from the gallery had disappeared, the one who had nodded back, the one with the gray blazer and restless hands. I knew her name. I said it once, silently, to bring it back into the room. Names are like matches. You strike them and they make light. In the hallway, the courthouse vending machine thumped and whirred. A child cried, then hushed. I stayed seated. My legs were ready to go somewhere and do something, but my head told them to wait. Patience is work. People forget that. They think patience is sitting. It's not. It's lifting a weight and holding it still. Eliza remained on the bench 2 rows back. She didn't leave with the others. She just sat, hands knotted, like the purse strap was the last line keeping her tethered. To the version of events she understood, she stared at the seal on the wall. The plastic eagle stared back. I wanted to look at her face and find my little girl, the one who collected rocks and believed each one had a story, the one who fell asleep in Carol's lap during summer thunderstorms and drooled on my shoulder on road trips. But the woman in the courtroom wasn't that girl. Life had smoothed her edges in some places and sharpened them in others. It happens. To all of us. I heard Warren in the hallway, voice too bright, telling someone that continuances were common, that nothing had changed. Lawyers sell calm like bail bonds. You hand them your panic. They hand you a script. The reporter from the Ledger hovered near the doorframe, pretending not to listen while listening to everything. Her recorder's little red light blinked like a heartbeat. She caught my eye. I gave her nothing. Not a glare, not a nod. Stories don't need help growing teeth. The clock climbed its way through the hour. 10 minutes. 20. 35. Kim made a couple calls. Short, efficient. Lot of copy that and receipt confirmed. The woman in the gray blazer returned at 42 minutes with a styrofoam cup of water. She didn't drink. She just held it, both hands wrapped around like it might run away. A janitor changed the trash liner. He moved like he'd been doing it in this room for 20 years. Quiet, respectful, eyes down. People like him see it all and keep it all. Whole towns are built on men like that. Nobody notices until something breaks. At 55 minutes, the bailiff reappeared and tapped the doorframe with 2 knuckles. The sound was light, polite. Church, quiet. 5, he said. I stood and the room tilted a hair. The kind of tilt you get when you've stood too fast from a couch on a hot day. Kim touched my elbow and the world straightened. You're sure? She asked. I'm sure, I said. I palmed the granola bar, put it back in my pocket. Some things are better saved. The benches refilled. Faces came back flushed from gossip and hallway judgment. Warren smoothed his tie until it lay like a rule. Declan returned with a jaw set to iron and eyes glossy with something he would call certainty and I would call fear. Eliza stood, then sat, then stood again. She adjusted the strap. Saturday folded her hands over the bag as if it were breathing. The judge's door opened. She walked in with the gavel, like a metronome in her palm. The clerk settled. The bailiff called the room to order, and the room obeyed. I took one more breath. Heavy, measured, the kind you take before ducking under a wave. Because one more truth was coming. One voice they'd forgotten. One name Declan had buried, thinking it would never rise again. But names have a way of surviving, especially when they're signed beside yours on a hospital log. The courtroom emptied slow, like people weren't sure if they should leave or stay in case something else cracked open. Shoes dragged, whispers trailed, and the benches groaned as if even the furniture wanted to linger for the rest of the story. I didn't move. I just watched. Declan whispered furiously to Warren near the window, arms slicing the air sharp and wild. His lips moved fast, but the words were just angry shapes through glass. Warren nodded, frowned, tried to calm him with that lawyerly patter, but Declan's gestures cut through it like knives. Eliza still hadn't lifted her eyes. Her purse sat in her lap, strap wound tight around her hand, and she stared at the floor as though the linoleum might forgive her if she just kept looking down. And me? I sat still. Because when you know the final card in your hand is a queen with a loaded story, you don't blink. You don't flinch. You wait. You wait for the dealer to call the next round. The hour passed in pieces, not minutes. Pieces. The bailiff refilled his coffee, the bitter smell wafting over the benches. The clerk shuffled folders into neat little piles, her lips moving silently as she counted. Even the janitor rolled in with a new trash bag, humming under his breath, tying the knot with practiced hands like nothing in the world had changed. But the room had changed, the weight of it had shifted. The air had memory now. When the judge returned, so did the eyes, all of them turning like sunflowers to her bench. Everyone leaned forward, shoulders creaking as though the next moment might make their rent worth it. Judge, court is back in session. We'll proceed with witness testimony. Miss Baldwin, your first witness? Kim stood, calm, certain, like the tide knew her by name. Kim, we call Lorraine Holloway to the stand. The pause that followed was its own kind of thunder. The gallery rippled with whispers. Declan's eyes twitched, a tick he couldn't disguise. Then she stepped forward, heels clicking, chin high, steady. Lorraine Holloway, early 40s, pearl earrings catching the light. Her hands were firm, the kind of hands that lifted boxes, folded blankets, helped people stand. She walked like someone who'd taught kids to read and had the patience of a saint until you crossed her. She took the stand, swore in, raised her right hand like a blade of truth. Kim, can you state your relationship to Mr. Raymond Cole? Lorraine, I was the facility manager at Autumn Pines Assisted Living in Knoxville during Mrs. Carol Cole's final year. Kim, and were you present during the time period surrounding Mrs. Cole's passing? Lorraine, every day. The gallery leaned closer. You could hear the creak of wooden pews, the sigh of fabric shifting. Kim, can you describe the defendant's involvement in his wife's care? Lorraine, he was there. Every day, without fail. Helped with feeding, changed her socks himself when staff were late, read to her, brought a Bible and her favorite church bulletins. Her voice carried no hesitation, just truth, laid down brick by brick. Kim, and the plaintiff? Lorraine, I saw Mr. Declan Cole 3 times in 12 months, Eliza twice. The words landed like a slap across the room. You could almost hear the sting. Kim turned, her gaze cutting toward Declan, then back to Lorraine. Kim, did either of them ever manage medical decisions or speak with staff about prescriptions? Lorraine, no. But on March 19th, Declan Cole called the main desk and insisted on canceling a refill for Mrs. Cole's pain medication, saying it was unnecessary and wasteful spending. We logged that call, standard procedure. Warren shot up like his chair was on fire. Warren, objection, hearsay. Kim, we have the call log, submitted as Exhibit D, Judge. Overruled, continue. The gavel hadn't even needed to fall. The judge's voice was enough. Kim, Miss Holloway, did you notify Mr. Raymond Cole? Lorraine, I did. He arrived less than an hour later with a handwritten note confirming he had revoked Declan Cole's medical proxy. The staff followed the updated record immediately. The gallery buzzed now, whispers growing legs. It wasn't noise anymore. It was a verdict forming in the air. Declan looked like a matchstick, doused in cold truth. Kim, did Mr. Raymond Cole ever behave erratically, show signs of confusion or poor judgment? Lorraine, no. He was grieving, but sharp, and deeply protective of his wife. Kim, thank you, miss. Holloway, no further questions. Judge, Mr. Ellison? Warren stood, but the confidence was gone. His shoulders sagged under the weight of a bad hand. Warren, Miss. Holloway, how do you know that call was made by Mr. Declan Cole? Lorraine, because he said his name, spelled it, and left a callback number that matched the emergency contact form we had on file. I called back. He answered. Silence. Warren. No further questions. Lorraine stepped down. Her heels echoed across the floor like punctuation marks, periods, full stops. Declan didn't meet her eyes, but she looked straight at him, a beam cutting through smoke. And for the first time since this whole circus started, he looked small. Not just embarrassed, exposed. The judge turned back to me. Judge, Mr. Cole, is there anything else you wish to submit? I nodded, reached into my coat pocket. My fingers brushed the fabric, the old lining before they found the folded paper. Pulled out the last item, a photocopy of a check, dated 6 months before Carol's death, payable from the joint account to Bright Ridge Consultants. $6,000. Memo line, future planning. I held it up. The paper felt heavier than it should. Me. Your Honor, this check was written by my daughter, from an account she had no legal access to at the time. The consultant? Turns out that was just a shell billing service registered to a P.O. box outside of Nashville. Guess who signed the lease? Kim slid another document across the table. Smooth, certain. Kim. Exhibit E. Lease agreement filed under the name Declan T. Cole. Notarized. Warren's face flushed, the color of a man watching a dam break. Warren. This is irrelevant. Judge, it speaks to financial motivation. Sit down, Mr. Ellison. The tension in the room thickened again, but not heavy this time. Sharp, like broken glass underfoot. Everyone could smell the truth now. Coppery, metallic, I swear it was in the air. Declan, this isn't what it looks like. Me, you're right. It's worse. His jaw twitched. His voice rose brittle. Declan, snapping. You think cutting us out of a will makes you powerful? Me, no. Holding you accountable makes me powerful. He lurched forward. His chair skidded back, but the bailiff was there. Firm hand on his shoulder. Steady pressure. Declan jerked away, wild. Declan, this is abuse. He's old. He's manipulating. He's... Me, say one more word and I'll release the full tape. The room froze. Even the judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing like shutters pulling focus. Me, the call you made to the nursing staff? I recorded my end. Tennessee's a one-party consent state, remember? Declan sat, hard. The gallery went dead still. The silence had weight again. This time it pressed down on him, not me. Kim leaned in close, her breath steady, her voice quiet. Kim, whispering, you want the judge to hear it? Me, no. Kim, why not? Me, because sometimes silence is louder than evidence. The judge studied me for a long moment, her gavel raised, hand firm, but she hesitated. Judge, I've heard enough. This court will reconvene for closing statements tomorrow. Until then, all motions are frozen, and I will personally review every exhibit submitted. The gavel hovered, and for a second the whole room held its breath. She looked at me, just me. Judge, Mr. Cole, thank you for your patience. Then, crack. And it wasn't Declan's slam that owned the room anymore. It was mine. The next morning, Knoxville felt colder than it should have in April. The sky hung low, gray and swollen, pressing down on the courthouse square like a lid. The kind of morning where the air smells faintly of wet concrete and diesel, where the breeze cuts sharper than the calendar promises. I stood outside the courthouse before dawn, sipping burnt diner coffee from a foam cup that went soft at the rim. Bitter steam curled up, stinging my eyes, but I kept drinking. watching the sun try and fail to punch through Tennessee's low-hanging clouds. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't proud either. Just done. That kind of done where your bones feel clean, stripped bare like something toxic has finally worked its way out of your body after years of sitting quiet under your skin. A couple of pigeons pecked along the courthouse steps. The street was nearly empty, just the distant thrum of a delivery truck and the slow, squeaking wheels of a city bus. Kim pulled up 5 minutes before call time, her old sedan coughing against the curb. Window rolled down, her hand still on the steering wheel. Kim, you ready? Me, been ready since the day she died? She studied me for a breath, like she was checking if I meant it. Then she nodded. That was enough. The courtroom was packed tighter than before. Reporters lined the benches, pens twitching like nervous insects. Extended cousins I hadn't seen since funerals passed. Old neighbors from the block, faces older now but eyes just as sharp. Even a woman who once taught Declan piano when he was still small enough to dangle his feet above the pedals. Everyone wanted to see the final blow. Eliza wasn't there, but Declan was, and he was smaller than yesterday. No suit jacket this time. No gel slicking down his hair. Just a gray sweater he didn't quite fill out. Sleeves a little too long. Shoulders sagging like fabric couldn't find the man it had been bought for. He carried the look of someone who'd gambled everything on charm and lost to paper. The judge entered with no small talk, no wasted breath. Her robe moved like a shadow across the bench. No preamble, just power. Judge, we are reconvened. After thorough review of all submitted evidence, and in light of the sworn testimony provided yesterday, this court finds no merit in the petition filed by Mr. Declan Cole. The amended will stands. A rush of air filled the room, not applause, not shock, just release. The collective exhale of people who'd been holding their breath for hours, maybe years. Judge, additionally, the court recognizes the troubling implications of financial misrepresentation by the plaintiff and reserves the right to forward documentation to the appropriate state authorities for further inquiry. Declan's face went white, paper white, the kind of white that makes veins look like maps. Judge, Mr. Cole, do you wish to make a final statement? He stood, slow, like gravity had finally noticed him. Declan, no, Your Honor. His voice barely carried. Judge, then this matter is settled. Court is adjourned. Crack. And just like that, it was over. No fireworks. No screaming match. Just wood against wood. Clean and final. I didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. Didn't move until the last footstep echoed off the back wall and out into the hallway. Then I gathered the envelope, the exhibits, the check, the photocopy, all of it. Every piece of proof that I wasn't just some bitter old man with a pen and a grudge. I was a witness to a life lived, to loyalty betrayed, to love lost and buried properly. Outside, as the crowd spilled into the parking lot like water down a slope, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Lorraine Holloway. Her pearl earrings caught the weak sunlight. Her eyes held both weight and warmth. Lorraine, he'll never admit it, you know, but he heard you. Me, doesn't matter. Lorraine, why not? Me, because he's not the audience anymore. She smiled, sad and knowing, like someone who'd seen too many endings to expect neat ones. Lorraine, you ever gonna forgive them? I shook my head. Me, forgiveness is for folks who show up. She nodded, didn't argue, just let the truth sit where it landed. Then she walked away, heels clicking against the concrete, fading into the shuffle of strangers. Later that night, I sat on my porch. The boards creaked beneath my chair. The cicadas had come back, singing their metallic hymn to the heat. Carol's rocking chair sat across from mine, empty, but not hollow. The wind brushed against it, gentle, as though it remembered. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the only thing I hadn't shown the court. A photo. Me. Carol. Declan. He was 7. missing front teeth, grinning wide, holding a toy plane in one hand and my thumb in the other. The edges of the photo were worn soft from being handled too often. Carol's smile still glowed, steady and kind. Declan's eyes were wide, open, unguarded. I kept it because I wanted to remember the boy, not the man he became. Some stories don't end in hugs. Some legacies don't pass down. They stop, so the next one doesn't suffer. But some truths, they outlive the liars. And sometimes the microphone that tried to silence you becomes the one that plays your final word, forever. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.